Good evening, gearheads. Welcome to your Sunday night with Speed City. This is John Massengale. I'm in the studio in Austin with my friend Jonathan Green across the desk from me. Mr. Green, how are you, sir?
Hot and sweaty. Just been to Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, it was probably hotter here in Austin than Nashville.
Yeah, to be honest, it rained Friday and Saturday. There was quite a few delays for everybody involved. It was a big event.
Oh, huge.
The
It
third
looked
Motor
like,
City
yeah.
Grand Prix, yeah. And, I mean, SRO were there, Super Trucks were there, Trans Am were there, which is what I was doing, and, of course, Indy. And Indy Lights and Indy Next.
Indy Next, yeah. It
So,
was
big event.
crazy. Well,
And 100,000 people. Really, really cool.
and it wasn't crazy hot, right?
No, it wasn't crazy hot. It was sort of mid-80s, 90s, but it was so humid.
That's
really
nighttime for Austin.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was. I
you
tell you what, it was a
see-
nice reprieve.
Did you see the forecast for Austin? It's like for the next 7 days, 107 is the lowest high temperature. It's supposed to be like 109, 107 to 109 in the next week. I'm just,
What was Robin Williams? It's hot, damn hot. This is a crotch pot cooking.
I am a native Texan, and I am done with this.
That's hot.
Yeah, that's hot. That
I'm
is
done
hot.
with it. Hey, let's talk about what we are going to talk about.
It's
tonight,
hot.
because besides it being hot, we got lots to talk about. We got some Formula One stories, including some stuff about Las Vegas, the latest on the Andretti F1
Yes.
stuff, and Hamilton's contract, more and more. We got actually quite a
By
few
the way, I
stories.
want to blow out a theory tonight on the Andretti thing.
Ooh,
I've got a
like
story
that.
to back it up, but I kind of want to join the dots.
I have.
for you,
I'm going to
for
blow
our
out.
audience.
I'm going to blow out a theory to you that I just kind of teased.
But
to
my
you.
theory's better than your theory.
Well, yours is better because it has to do with Andretti. Mine has to do with MotoGP
Ooh.
and Liberty Media.
Hey, shout out Joe Roberts when we get to MotoGP.
Oh yeah.
Good result.
Yeah, because we're going to talk Formula One, MotoGP, of course, Indycar at Nashville. That was great. Of
Yep.
course, you were there for the weekend,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not for today. And a little Trans Am, of course, which is what you were working on.
Yeah.
So, but I want to start with IndyCar
Yes.
because it was great. Number one, because Kyle Kirkwood won.
I know. One of our favourites of the show.
Yep.
No question about it. His second street race win, his second win for Andretti Autosport, winning again. And not really an expected win. He did a brilliant job. He didn't qualify that well, but nobody did because there was so little track time. They delayed Friday.
Because of the rain.
Yeah. So it was not an easy weekend for Indy, especially when you never know what you're going to get. They didn't change the course from last year, but, there's always things that change on a road course. It's getting weathered all the time. So you just don't know what you're going to get. And so, but he did a brilliant job. He got a great start. He used the cautions and came out on top and just didn't hold back. I mean, it was Penske versus Ganassi versus Andretti. Pillow, all the top guys involved, and Kirkwood came out on top.
Yeah. But there's lots of stuff to talk about because we had Linus Lundqvist, who
Yep.
started his first race.
I'm so happy for him. Good.
And, I saw him all the way up to third. He didn't end up finishing great.
Friend of the show, Linus.
Yeah, he's been on the show a few times.
And Benjamin Pedersen, another rookie, getting into it now. And, it's funny. I was talking the one conversation over the weekend, and I was talking to Adam Andretti, who races in Trans Am, about I've got a story to tell you about an Andretti too. But the depth of talent has never been bigger in both Indy Next and in IndyCar. There isn't a weak driver on that field, and the guys like Linus and Benjamin
Does
Pedersen
feel
coming
like
in,
that, yeah.
Malukas and so on, they're ready. And when you look at the Indy Next field, and Hunter McElroy and Rasmussen and all the rest of it, they could just jump in a seat. And so, it's really getting interesting. It's a good time for IndyCar. They are at the top of their game, and the talent, the fact that, it used to be that, Nigel Mansell would win his Formula One world title and come over and do Indy and dominate, or Alonso would come over and it would be a big hurrah, right? Now we're talking about Palou, and we're talking about Hurton, we're talking about Pato O'Ward going to Formula One. That's how much talent there is.
Yeah, and speaking of the level of talent, we've been watching Kirkwood forever, right?
Yeah.
All the way back to F4. And he came through F4, F3,
Road to Indy. Yep.
Road to Indy, all the different ones. And he decimated the competition
Yeah.
all the way. I mean, he
Yeah.
won, like in F4 and F3, he won like 80% of his races.
And the only
or
other
something.
one, ironically, Linus Lundqvist and Benjamin Pedersen did the same.
Yes.
Linus especially.
Not quite as much as Kirkwood.
No.
But they did do similar.
And Kirkwood would argue that in the days where he was in FR, it was just starting out in this country, and there was
True.
very few competitors. But that's you can't look at history like that.
It's true, but he did the same thing in Indy, the road to Indy.
He did, yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
He won Indy
He's the
Lights
real
at the
deal.
time.
He is the real
Well,
deal.
my point in all of that is that he was, he went to every series and killed it all the way up. When he got to IndyCar, it took him to his second year before
Yeah.
he started winning races.
Yeah.
So it's like backing up the point you're making about the level of competition in IndyCar. I expected Kirkwood to be able to. I expect him to win, at least win races his first season. Maybe he wasn't in the right car at the right time or whatever, but he's he's definitely the real deal on the level of competition.
And just taking
crazy.
and just taking a side vaunt from that, he's still young, and I think we know Colton Herta's in line for that Andretti Formula One ride if they get the franchise. I think Kirkwood could be easily the second driver.
Absolutely. And to me, I wrote in my notes when Andretti won today, after Andretti winning in Formula E, I was like, don't you know that Michael is just kind of smiling, going, okay, Formula One,
I'd like to call Toto up and go, that quote about Andretti being good in America? Well, actually, just have a look at the results worldwide on Andretti Motorsport.
Exactly. But what a great time for this to be happening. I mean, they're literally talking about Andretti in the F1 effort, and he's winning Formula E, and he's winning everything right now. His resume is getting even better.
While I was watching practice, I saw, we were all waiting for a rain delay, and I saw an interesting conversation going on between Zach Brown and Michael Andretti, and they were smiling and chatting and all the rest of it. And of course, they're in business together in Australia. They share a franchise, if you like, in Super V8s. So there's an interesting simpatico there. That everybody says, oh, they don't want Andretti in Formula One. Well, it's never, it's never as simple as the story we get.
Yeah. All right. What else about IndyCar? Man, do you see that lap 17? Herta was going into the concrete wall, passed by like 6 cars. That was a crazy, not fortunate incident for Herta. I mean, he ended up, making it through that. But what about that really weird wing failure for David Malukas? Did you see that?
I didn't.
I've never seen something like that in
I had to skip through it because I was on the plane coming back when the race was on itself. So
he was. They by the time they showed him, the rear wing was like broken on the ground, and they were like, "Oh, we all thought, he was in a collision," but he wasn't. And his rear wing had broken and fallen backwards, and then the car was smoking. It was like, what caused all of that?
Yeah, weird.
It's like the engine was having problems, and the rear wing had broken and fallen down. I never heard. I was hoping you'd heard, but I hadn't seen anything. But that was crazy.
Before we finish, Indy, I want to tell you about the future of that event.
Okay. Well, we have a clip before we finish, Indy. We have a clip from Kyle Kirkwood, and he was in the press conference after the race. And if we're good to go on that one, we will hear that. Casey, we good to go? He said we're good. Let's hear it. Kyle Kirkwood.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal afternoon. I mean, we absolutely nailed everything. It felt like, to be honest, we had a great strategy. Car was extremely fast through the entire race. I feel like we were probably one of the fastest cars. I haven't looked back at it yet. I have no idea, but I assume we were. And Andretti Autosport, AutoNation, Honda keep giving me a car that's super good on street courses. I feel like this should be more than just 2 wins, to be honest, on street courses, given the cars that they've given me. But I'm thrilled with this one here today. This is kind of redemption from last year. We just had a dumb incident, and redemption from Toronto, redemption from Detroit. I mean, this one feels good, no doubt. It doesn't feel as good as the first one. That first one was absolutely amazing at Long Beach, but no, this is a step in the right direction. This helps us in our championship, get us back in the top 10 range, I imagine. So this was a phenomenal day for Andretti Autosport on the 27 car.
He's not going to change the world in this year's championship, but he is slowly making a name for himself. And that 27, which was Rossi's, remember, I think he's come into that team and he's got his elbows out. They have got a lot of respect. He may be young, he may be just on the way up, but I think that second win solidifies that he is up there. Not maybe as below is, but he's up there.
He's now 9th in the championship after this win today.
Yeah.
So
good stuff. Really enjoyed
it. He is definitely on the way up. And, if he continues this, he could move up into the top 5 or something by the end of the season.
Easily. Yep. Easily.
There was something else on Indy. I was just going to talk about Palou. And he finished third, and McLaughlin finished second.
Yeah, McLaughlin's going to be mad because I mean he was pole last year.
Yeah.
And you know, Scott McLaughlin, what a story this is turning out to be. You know, we're all amazed at what Van Gisbergen did a couple of weeks ago, but here's another Kiwi doing it in style.
So did you see, I actually was doing the same thing. I watched about the first 2 hours of IndyCar, but I had to rush toward the end. But I didn't see McLaughlin we've got a clip from him. And in fact, let's just play the clip, but it's talking about the restarts. He was really upset about the restarts. Let's hear it from Scott
It
McLaughlin.
didn't go well there.
And just throw it, and well within their right to throw it up the inside when it turns green. That's fine. But we just have this terrible, just stop-start, amateurish looking finish to races. And if we could just, I'm going to speak to Jay about it, Cole, Novak, we just need to go, okay, well, apex the last corner or start finish line. Like make a point where you just can't pass. If just to get it going. And look, I might be wrong. They might crash at turn 1. But what I'm saying is I've done it in supercars. Formula 1 does it. Other sports around the world do it. Like it just gets the race going. Everyone's on cold tires and someone's going to have a mistake. And then the guy behind him is going to go, oh, no, I'm going to have a crack. And then that lock up, boom, bang, bang, Constantina, big shunts, people getting hurt, rah, rah, rah. It's just like, I just think it looks amateurish. Really.
Yeah, I'm with him on that, and I know why, because I've been in conferences with our race director for Trans Am, because it's a street circuit. The start-finish line, which is right by the pit lane and right opposite the Nissan Stadium, right?
You're the perfect person to answer this question.
And therefore, the run from the start-finish line is too short. It's about 100 yards to a really tight turn 1, and it's also pit exit. So you can imagine it's not a great place to start a race. So what we do in Trans Am is we start on the bridge, which is the fastest part. So we go green on the other side of the bridge, and you'll see that a lot of coming back over the bridge before turn 9.
Got it.
Indy, interestingly enough, still had the green flag where I'm talking about at the start finish, but the leader controls the race coming out of turn 9, which is 3 turns before that, and that's what he's talking about. He's sort of saying you're not even. It is confusing as a fan to watch because the commentators are like, okay, now he's in control of the race, and kind of like the speed is kind of upping, and we haven't seen the green flag.
Yeah.
But they're trying to put it back, so exactly what he's saying doesn't happen, which is a concertina effect. So the race is at least underway 2 corners before you come to the real funnel, where you've got to be line astern, otherwise there's trouble. Happened in the Indy Next race, they were trying to jostle for position before the green flag. But the race had in other words, it's confusing, and I'm with Scott on this. It's never easy at a street race, but I think we got it right in Trans Am by using the fastest part of the circuit and the most space going into the biggest corner on the racetrack, i.e. width, and with runoff, that would avoid that potential massive pileup.
If you watch that whole interview and the press conference, he was very upset about it. And I think Scott McLaughlin is one of the best, if not the best, additions to IndyCar.
Oh, no question.
He's super. He's one of the best drivers. Absolutely. I mean, he's going to battle for championships every year. It feels like.
And it's amazing.
He's so sincere and genuine and open, and he's that way on social media. He's fantastic.
And you know what? With his fellow compatriot Scott Dixon being the GOAT of Indy, it doesn't take too many organizers to work out that these guys know what they're talking about, and they do it from the heart. They do it because they love racing. They're not trying to make a name for themselves. They're already household names around the world.
Yeah.
McLaughlin Van Gisbergen, Dixon, etc. So when he's got a bug to bear, he means it, and he means well by it. And street races, we had the same conversations with Trans Am going through the whole weekend, which is what happens here, what happens there, because we had a lot of wet weather too.
All right, well, speaking of Trans Am, let's talk about it a little bit after the break. You're listening to Sunday Night with Speed City, back after a quick break. All right, we got a good question from David Lawrence, Jonathan. He's on YouTube. He says, on Twitter, I openly questioned if Roma Grosjean can win an IndyCar. Do y'all think he will? Because he is slowly becoming...
The championship?
Because win a race. Because I know he's finished a second twice, but I don't think he's won a race yet. And I think that's what David is saying. And he says, because he is slowly becoming Nigel Mansell 2.0.
Well, Nigel Mansell was a massive champion.
Well, I like the question, irregardless of that part of it, but because can he win? I mean, today when he was under pressure, I know that he locked up, but his tires were done at that point, right? But
yes.
To answer his question, I think Roman Grosjean can win because
no question.
Grosjean, I think, is incredibly physically talented, right? He's clearly can be incredibly fast. He's probably one of the fastest, in IndyCar. But over the years, we've seen mental stuff go on with Grosjean.
Yeah, and the weird thing is he's having that. He burst onto the scene and looks so good.
Hey, this is Kurt Busch. You're listening to Speed City Radio.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We're going to talk some Formula One later in the show. We're going to talk some MotoGP later in the show. But right now, we're going to talk a little Trans Am. Jonathan Green was there working on the microphones. Jonathan, tell us about
it. Great. It was our third year. At
Nashville.
At Nashville. And we have a sort of insider, if you will. Scott Borchetta is not only an accomplished Trans Am driver in our series, he's also the head of Big Machine Records, which of course
Big Machine Vodka and Big Machine
exactly.
everything.
So he's our title sponsor for the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers Trans Am series this year. He was third in the race last year, and he is the total sponsor for the overall IndyCar event at Nashville. He's the vision, if you will, behind the whole of the event. And he couldn't race this year. He unfortunately broke his leg.
Yeah, he had a really
big accident at Road Atlanta. So he very graciously, I can't believe he had the time to do it, but he graciously came in and commentated, which was really, really fascinating for me.
Nothing like sitting next to the boss there, buddy.
Yeah, totally. But I really enjoyed it. And he was very insightful. He was the beauty of it is he's got no, if he feels strongly about something, he makes his opinion felt. And there was a couple of incidents where he said, no, that guy's wrong. That's
that's
great.
Good. That's
really
refreshing.
Good stuff.
And that's coming from the big boss.
That's the big
guy
boss.
Who owns the series. I mean,
well,
essentially,
he's
right?
He's the reason the event is happening.
Okay. Yeah.
And also, he made it into a music festival. Obviously, the Big Machine record label includes Sheryl Crow and many others. Tim McGraw, the lot. He's got a huge play. I mean, his fame comes from having signed Taylor Swift years ago, but now his record label is massive.
So who was there? Were they doing live? Concerts?
Oh, there was. I mean, I can't even name them, but Florida, which is a rap singer, was there. But no, they weren't all Big Machine. I asked him about that.
Artists,
they weren't all artists. His artists. He wanted to use it as an opportunity for some of the big names to come and be entertaining to the 100,000 people that were there. But he also wanted, for example, on our national anthem, to give somebody else a shot. Give somebody else a bit of limelight in a perfect time to do it. And that's been his MO. But the story about Scott Borchetta that's perhaps more interesting is that while this weekend was going on, a deal was struck. And the finale of IndyCar next year will be in Nashville. And they'll do the prize giving there. And I don't know if you know this, but Titan Stadium is being pulled down. And they're going to build it in that pit lane and paddock.
I did not know that. It's right next to it. You could see it on the helicopter shots.
They're tumbling it down and rebuilding it literally 100 yards away because they feel that it's more of a college stadium kind of, in terms of size. And they feel that they can go bigger. And they are.
Jerry
They're going
Jones
massive.
envy.
They're literally going to go big time. And Nashville's, that's the kind of, Nashville is a bit like Austin is. It's very much like, well, let's just go bigger. So he has now taken this, after 3 years, event to being Indy's big event.
So what are they going to do in the old stadium?
Well, what they're going to...
They're going to use the old stadium.
They're going to crush the old stadium down to nothing. And they're going to rebuild a brand new state-of-the-art stadium.
Oh, I thought you meant that IndyCar was going to use some of that area.
No. Well, we go by that stadium, so we can't do that next year. So what they're going to do for the finale is, where they come over the bridge, the Korean War.
They go back, go down and come back.
Well, instead of coming back, they're going to go right onto Broadway. They're going straight down Broadway. They're going to the street. So in effect, here we are in Austin, they're effectively going down 6th Street, which will be both a spectacle But an interesting scenario, because how do you keep everybody happy? Because those bars make a lot of money. But it'll also be a fantastic spectacle to see them go by Johnny Cash's bar and,
That is
you know,
very cool.
Grand Ole Opry, whatever. And then they'll come back because they have to. But so that was the big story of the weekend. But the other big story, and I just want people to be aware, I've always had a real passion for the youngsters and who's coming up next. Kyle Kirkwood, we followed from the very get-go. And I said to you, watch this kid.
Yeah.
And here he is, winning today.
Yeah. I think you said that in F4.
Yeah. We have
Seriously.
a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old in Connor Zilic and Brent Cruz. Both have been World Kart champions. Both are from North Carolina. They grew up racing against each other, and now they are winning. And Zilic got a restrictor plate, a modification penalty. He was pole and came from the back in 34th position and won the darn thing.
Wow.
And he did the same at Detroit.
But the restrictor plate violation was after he won?
No.
Ah,
They found it after qualifying.
okay. Okay.
And it was, you know that is one of the big violations.
Sure. Yeah.
And
It's
it,
instant horsepower.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it created quite. And the annoying thing for me is that Connor's 17, and of course, wouldn't have been aware what he's not looking in the engine, he's just driving.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed pointless to me when he was already, he's already one of the fastest drivers we've got, and he's a huge talent, and they're just making his life harder, and it just seems, anyway, it's a political thing,
So-
but
But you're
two
saying,
big names for the future.
And where do you think they'll go?
Well, Brent Cruz is already signed by TRD,
Right.
Toyota Racing Development, and
Or-
so therefore is in line to go to NASCAR.
Okay.
In fact, he drove in the Toyota GR series as well in the 86s. So he's 15.
And obviously, Trans Am is Transart and NASCAR is a natural transition.
Well,
right?
yeah, and more so, and it's been interesting. I've been with Trans Am now, 6 years? And in the last 3 years, because NASCAR has gone to COTA and other road races, and people like
yeah.
Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson are natural-born road racers, all these kids are coming to NASCAR to learn road racing. So they're saying,
Coming
hey,
to Trans Am.
coming to Trans Am to
Right.
learn road racing. So when they arrive in the Xfinity, like with Conor Mosak, good example. He was with us 2 years.
That's a good side door into
Great
NASCAR.
side door. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's now becoming a feeder series to the NASCAR series, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah. But that's a sneaky way in, right?
Well, it's not so much sneaky. It's a cheap way in. The
Yeah.
cars aren't that dissimilar. I mean, we have a wing on the back compared to NASCAR. The car's very similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, NASCAR's we go simple, they go more sophisticated with the Gen 3. But, for example, Daniel Suarez did this race last year.
Yeah.
And in this year's race, Justin Marks was in the top 6, who is a team owner. So, and Suarez didn't do anything. He didn't beat everybody. And Brent Cruz at 15 is killing it. He's
Yeah.
winning everything.
Trans Am feels like it's on a resurgence.
It is. Weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say weirdly because, we think about Formula E and we think about V8s and massive
Right.
muscle car. But I tell you what, that crowd at Nashville who came to see the Indycar, because that's the headline event, literally were up on their seats going, what is this? This is like, wow. This is like NASCAR. We got 34 cars going around a street circuit and, no room for error and great racing.
And people, we're talking about how hot it's going to be. We talk about the global warming and climate change and all this stuff, and motorsport series have been in the crosshairs for some of this stuff, but it's not going to be long before synthetic fuels of some sort, carbon neutral fuels or whatever, like Formula One and others are talking about going to and are already experimenting with, and how Porsche's pouring money into that. But every race series can start using that.
Yeah.
Across the board. And, if it becomes a bigger and bigger issue, it's like, I'm sure they're doing market research going, well, if we did this, our audience might, it might grow because of that.
It's a smart move because it's what Formula E did, if you think about it. You take motorsport to the people. And that's a key.
Yeah.
If you ask Formula E what the secret of their success is that they brought it into towns. They brought it into town centers.
Because they can, because
Yeah.
it's not noisy. It's, it's socially acceptable, I might say, for lack of a better phrase. But
My other story I had to tell you. I got the thrill and a half of a lifetime because during the weekend, so Scott's going to my co-commentator, right?
Yeah.
So I said, why should we do the opener? We usually choose some iconic backdrop or whatever. And he goes, well, I'm launching my new bourbon at the distillery, which is just over the bridge from the track.
That's not a good place for Jonathan Green to
Well,
be.
yeah, that's true. But he goes, and Mario Andretti's going to be there. And I'm like, I'll be there. And of course, we opened the show with Mario. And I said to him, and Adam Andretti, of course, is usually my co-commentator and his nephew. And I said to him, I know you didn't do Trans Am, Mario, but do you watch? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, Adam's a good driver. And he goes, he's a really good commentator. He goes, he does it with you, doesn't he? I was like, yeah.
He knows who I
So Mary knows me. I'm so excited.
I was just telling someone about one of the greatest conversations in a Formula One paddock. In fact, probably the greatest or second greatest. Maybe the one that we did a deal was maybe the greatest. But this one was you and I walking through the paddock, and we see Mick Doohan and
that's
Mario.
right, yeah.
and we just stopped and had a conversation
Mario.
like just a bunch of gearheads and talking racing.
It's wonderful.
For like 20 minutes
Yeah.
with Mario.
Genuine
Yeah.
people, it's great. I think you're right. They say don't meet your idols, but in the case of Mario Andretti, it's okay.
Yeah. All right, we got a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk some MotoGP. We got Formula One stories coming up too. You're listening to Sunday Night with Speed City. Back after this.
I think
All right.
me and Dave Lawrence are going to be mates. I'm looking at all his lines here, and we're both big Scotty Mac fans, and he met him, and he's the real deal. He's a fantastic guy. And he's saying, as he goes, I have my sights on going to Nashville for that finale next year. So go, Dave. You'll enjoy it. But also they're doing the prize giving there too. Not that necessarily you'd go to that, but it's going to be a big festival. And he says, I hope they don't IndyCar doesn't Vegas F1 it.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that the bars will be okay. And I agree with him wholeheartedly, which is what you might find is that the IndyCar takes place earlier in the day, so you don't ruin the Saturday night traffic of what Broadway is, which is just a huge bachelorette party and music fest.
Or bachelor party.
Yeah, or bachelor party. But
Or both.
Or both. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I could hear the drums going until 3 a.m. last night. So
As you're trying to sleep.
I'm trying to sleep. But hey.
I met McLaughlin.
Oh, that's right, yes.
When he did, they sent him over for an interview. He was doing testing.
That's right.
And
it was his first American test.
It was before he had driven an IndyCar race. And he was, you got to remember, these guys are still kids, right? He was still just a little kid.
Yeah.
And he was obviously very confident. But he had not, he'd just done, this was his second test. It was here at COTA. But he was super nice and gave me plenty of, time, all the time I wanted. And he was very humble. But I like the way he's blossomed now. I mean,
when I fell in the water, he was on that boat.
Was he really?
Yeah.
How old was he?
He was just starting out in supercars. Yeah,
that was
he was
a long
22.
time ago.
Yeah, he was 22. I think he was about 22.
Isn't he?
And he became famous.
How old is he now?
29, 30.
I was going to say he must be 30.
But he became famous in Australia when he went to V8s, and when he won his first race, he used a complete Kiwi expression. What we call flip-flops, they call jandals in New Zealand. And so they said, how did you do the win? He goes, I just gave it full jandal.
All right, here we go.
This is David Hobbs, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Speaking of nice
A
blokes,
Trans Am man.
David Hobbs, yeah.
There you go.
He's a super nice guy, isn't he?
Oh, fantastic.
I stopped him at COTA many years ago. He didn't know me from Adam.
He's
and-
big mates with my Uncle Brian.
Yeah.
Him and Brian raced
Redmond.
BMWs for many a year.
That's right.
At Daytona and so on.
You say big mates. Now they're big mates. Back
Oh,
then,
yeah, no, back then they were big. No, I think they were big mates because it was them against the world. They were the two Brits, if you
Okay.
like, in the American scene. There was others that came, but they moved over and sort of voted with their feet to stay in America, and they both do. They go on holiday together and see each other, and Brian has a race at Road America, and David's always schmozzling up there. Schmozzling.
Speaking of Brits, what about the MotoGP British Grand Prix at Silverstone, Jonathan? I want to start with, I think of any race at Silverstone as kind of being a special, almost iconic, depending on the series. Formula One's for sure. And I've thought that with Silverstone with MotoGP, but just watching, it didn't feel like it this time to me.
No, unfortunately.
What's up?
Yeah, exactly. What's up? In fact, it's very disappointing, to be honest. And I hope it turns around, because MotoGP is still the amazing spectacle. Piastri was there. Lando Norris was there today.
Yeah, they were at the event.
You know, it is very special. But the crowds were down. Cal Crutchlow no longer races. We haven't got the Brits. Jake Dixon's doing well. He's third in Moto2. Joe Roberts did a good job. He got a fourth place, the American. Great news for him.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
But the two things have happened in Britain. Rossi's gone, and that they are still suffering. And that's how much of an influence Rossi had.
Oh,
The whole of MotoGP,
course.
here included, is suffering from a post-Rossi syndrome down.
Yeah.
You know, that people aren't, you know, they've lost not interest, but they haven't been captured by the Pecco Bagnaia, Bezzecchi kind of, you know, combination yet. And Marquez, you know, Marquez hasn't finished. Marc Marquez
Hasn't finished a race?
hasn't finished a race since Sepang last year.
Wow.
Hasn't finished a race.
I
So
saw some headline, didn't read it, said
Yeah.
Marquez still happy with today's race, even though he didn't finish. I'm like, what? That's not the Marquez.
And the other sad news is it didn't get shown on free-to-air British TV for the first time in many, many years. And the crowd was definitely down. I know Silverstone's a big complex, and you can't put 300,000 people like you see at Formula One, but you need a Lewis Hamilton. You need a George Russell. And they don't have that in MotoGP in Britain. Now, if you go to Spain, sure. If you go to France, sure. They have big stars. America, we don't have a MotoGP star. You know, the days of, you know, the big Colin Edwards and obviously Ben Spies and so many others, it's just not happening anymore. So
you think Joe Roberts can make it to from Moto2 to MotoGP?
I hope so. I really do. He's not like
That's a very political answer, by the way.
I mean, talent-wise, yes. And I say I hope so because I think it could make the difference. He's got that kind of personality.
And I know it's like every other motorsport. All the dominoes, I mean, all the pieces have to fall into the right place. You can have the talent, but all the other things have to happen around it too.
Yeah, and a bit like Formula One, we talk about going to Europe early. He was a Red Bull rookie with Marc Marquez. That's who he was a Red Bull rookie with. Can you imagine?
Oh, wow.
So there you go.
Well, this kind of dovetails nicely into this is something I just stumbled across this afternoon. I was watching an interview with Greg Maffei, who's the CEO of Liberty Media.
Not the guy from Billions, then?
No.
Okay.
He's CEO of Liberty Media, of course, owns Formula One and the Atlanta Braves and SiriusXM and all these other companies, right?
The big chief.
And
is it Maffei or Maffei?
Maffei, I think
you're right.
And he was talking about, the guy was asking him, of course, about Netflix Drive to Survive, and he said, I can't take credit for that. I give all the credit for that to Sean Bratches, who was there.
Yep.
And the conversation led to, you know, our other sports talking to you about what you did. And he was like, of course, every sport, you know, literally every sport wants to know what they did. What is this magic that you've put together?
The secret sauce, the magic dust.
That has allowed MotoGP to do, they've averaged a 25% growth in television ratings every year since 2018. Over that's a stunning number.
Yeah,
25% a year for the last 5 years. So, but the reason this dovetails into MotoGP is because he was saying, the interview asked him, are you looking at adding to your portfolio? Because Liberty Media is they're like a holding company, I guess, essentially, where they buy companies and hold them and grow them and then sell them. And thank goodness they turned down the offer from the Saudis to sell the sport of Formula One.
Yeah, thankfully.
But my thought is that, you know, MotoGP, since Rossi left, since other things are happening, and like they tried their own Netflix Drive to Survive series, failed miserably, right? It was a complete flop. But they're trying all these things. They've got sprint races every weekend now, which you and I both agree that's not a great idea.
No.
We talked to Simon Patterson, who
and by the way, it's not a good idea not because of the spectacle. It's a bad idea because MotoGP suffers from, when you fall off one of those things, you're going to break a collarbone, and so you can dissipate. Like that's another reason why the orders has gone down. The top guys in the championship were all injured, including Marquez at the start of the season.
Point.
You need your stars out every weekend.
Well, so I thought, I'm certain they've talked, and I thought, I wonder. I mean, they're kind of primed for the picking. You know, Formula One was primed for the picking because Bernie it was past his time, right? Everybody's got their time, and Bernie was time. It was time. He's 88 years old or whatever he is. It was time back then, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it is. And MotoGP is kind of prime for the picking. And do you think Liberty could do the same thing with MotoGP as they've done with Formula One?
Well, I'd love to. If I would be earning the kind of money they are if I could answer that question properly. But I will put a little bit of my oldness on, my sage wisdom on, and say, guess in 1992, when Dorna took over MotoGP, they bought it off.
Who?
Bernie Eccleston.
Oh,
Two Wheel Productions.
I did know that.
He briefly
I'd forgotten
owned
that.
MotoGP.
Yes, I
So
remember. Yeah.
there you go. And so, yeah, I do. I absolutely do think it's prime pickings. And, you know, we met Dan Bustamante at MotoGP here, the new commercial director. The American, who has been with the NBA for some 18 years. And by the way,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
But
I was going to ask you about it.
Okay,
so.
18 years at the NBA, basically globally taking NBA to that thing. And now he's in MotoGP taking what is essentially a Spanish-based championship and certainly a European-based championship, as Formula One is, and trying to bring it and grow it here in the States. And, you know, companies like us should be involved in that process because, like you say, it is a fantastic product. You know, one of the comments on YouTube from our mate in Thailand is, you know, hey, 4 guys on the last lap, all vying for the win, and it's fantastic motorsport. It's a fantastic sport, full stop. You know, and so yes, the pickings are there. It is absolutely. If you look at Supercross and how good that and how popular that is in the States, MotoGP could be up there with the right marketing.
It just needs a little packaging. It needs a little. I don't know. I literally thought of this an hour and a half ago, but
you know what Dan Bustamante said at that MotoGP weekend, which I've remembered through and through. Somebody said, hey, you don't have an American in MotoGP. How are you ever going to spark the interest? And he said, you all watch the World Cup and you all watch Lionel Messi. Yeah. He isn't American, and America was in the World Cup, but it didn't win the World Cup. So I don't believe that. If the product's good, Americans will get behind it.
I think it's more true for Formula One than it is for MotoGP because when people see the aliens as they are called, it is crazy. Oh. When you look at these guys and go, they're going that fast on a motorcycle, and you know, I saw them go 215 miles an hour or whatever with a radar gun that one time, and I'm like.
And like Formula One, you were there this year at that sort of village that I did with the sort of meet and greet with the fans. You saw how popular they are. They are aliens, and people, they're rock stars.
Yeah, and TW says, just now on YouTube, he says, it needs a little exposure because the racing is great. You're right. You're absolutely right, TW, but it needs more than exposure. It needs some, you know, whether it's a drive to survive, I don't think it necessarily has to be that, but I think it
needs a home that will put it prime time.
That's
ESPN,
for sure. Absolutely.
ESPN, if you look at how ESPN have marketed Formula One and each and every race now, breaking down the records. I know you're going to talk about that in a minute, but over 1 million in each race. We got record numbers for Spa, but the reason is it's on ESPN. And while that was a cable channel, and it is a cable channel, even if you don't have cable, it's available. MotoGP, by the way, do a great platform if you sign up for the season. We're members of it, and so you can watch the races on demand and all the rest of it. But as many of our fans have said, MotoGP needs to be on a place where destination TV, they always call it, the execs call it.
I feel like for the American audience, you know, MotoGP used to be so big when we had the big names from the Americans, but
Kenny Roberts.
But it needs a little more like the commentators. It's kind of far towards the inside baseball, the commentators.
And they are British, and they talk about that. Yeah, exactly. It's British-centric again, yeah. Yep. And you're right. It's tweaks that can make the difference.
I mean, we all know that the last little detail is sometimes the thing that pushes whatever it is over the top.
How hard would it be for me to bring Colin Edwards, Josh Hayes, Cameron Bobier, Joe Roberts, Kenny Roberts.
There's your team, baby.
Wayne Rainey, my old boss, and put them on a radio show like this or a TV show like this.
Did you include Kevin Schwantz in that?
Did I miss my mate? No, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
And and I think we should be doing that. I'm hoping to do that. So, with all the years, I did 20 years in bikes, so And the Americans. That's why I'm mentioning all those names. The Americans. Talent, Ben Spies, and more recently, Joe Roberts coming up, and there's plenty of others, and Moto America has now come back. The AMA has been put back on its feet by Wayne Rainey. So the time is now.
Yeah, it is the right time. Okay, well, that's a good transition. We'll get in our last quick break, and we'll be right back, and we'll get some Formula One stories. You're listening to Sunday Night with Speed City, back after these messages. That was good stuff. I really do feel very strongly about everything we just talked about MotoGP. Man.
Yeah, Dave Lawrence says MotoGP is not helped stateside when the races have never been shown live here. Well, that's not true. I did the Fox coverage with Bob Varsha and Kevin Schwantz here at COTA a few years ago. Fox, I used to work for Fox in in Charlotte, and do the sort of play-by-play when they went to breaks and stuff. And then when we went live, we used to only do the American race live, but Bob Varsha hosted it, and me and Kevin did the commentary. And so he's absolutely right. It's never shown live here. It's shown on CNBC at random times on a Sunday. And he's right. When you have to start fishing to find your big day, then it's your big sport. It suddenly it loses its credence.
Yeah. Hey, I was just looking at COTA's website and Twitter feed and stuff. And one thing I noticed, like on the homepage right now, it's talking about their shuttles and now available USGP shuttle passes. Oh, wow, that was a quick break. We'll do it after the break.
Okay.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
I had somebody ask me, thank you, Max Verstappen. I had somebody ask me, said, "Oh, is Max Verstappen, when you interview him, is he just this a-hole?" And I was like, absolutely not.
No.
He was. I said,
great.
I'm not competing against him on the track. He's friendly as can be.
Yeah, same with Michael Schumacher at the times. I spent a lot of time.
And he wasn't nice to us because we were journalists, because we're nobody, right?
Right.
It's not like he was talking to ESPN or Sky or whatever. And he was very pleasant and very nice to us.
He's got his own sim race team, right? Which Shane Van Gisbergen's in, funnily enough. Well, he's now going. I was one of the stories I put in the show tonight was if we wanted to talk about it. But he's now going.
Do it, yeah.
He's going to go do the real thing. He's going to try and get his own Verstappen team going.
That's very cool. Well, I want to talk about COTA a little bit because they are on their website. They said now available USGP shuttle passes, and that's in my mind when I think.
Now we're talking Formula One. Now.
Yeah, for USGP, for Formula One, and for the race coming up here in October, they're talking about you can buy your shuttle passes, right? Save time and money and buy your shuttle passes now. That transformed the traffic situation.
Yes, it did.
That. And the extra road.
Plus the extra beers because you don't have to drive home.
Well, yeah. and last year they had more than 600 buses because that same person I was talking to about with the Verstappen, they were saying like, oh, but I guess the traffic and everything's a nightmare. I said, no. You remember when we left COTA last year? We were home at your apartment in Central
15
Austin.
minutes.
It was like 25, let's say.
Well, we stopped for beer.
Yeah, instead of the normal 18 minutes or whatever. It was almost, now that was a good hour plus after the race, but still in years past, it was like 4 hours. One year it took us like 4 hours. I think that was like 3 years ago.
I'll tell you what, if you haven't got it, go on.
But the point of all that is they have fixed it. They have absolutely 100%.
And built roads.
Yeah, because the main road on the north side of COTA used to be 2 lanes, and now it's 5.
Yeah.
So they do 4 lanes in, to go to the race, and then 4 lanes out. So it is dramatically fixed. And it's not just that road in the shuttles. It's everything that they've done, and they have figured it out.
I can't wait till October. It's going to be cracker, not only for the racing, but do you think COTA are listening? Because I've got a promo that I've written for them.
Okay, let's hear it.
They've got the Killers and Queen, Dynamite with a laser beam.
You know what? I think that's a fantastic promo, but we're going to get somebody else to voice it.
So close. So close.
Actually, that wasn't too bad. It was better than I thought. I was ready to cringe.
No word of a lie. The Killers are playing and Queen with Adam Lambert. So in terms of the backdrop of the Formula One event, to have 2 fantastic bands.
Yeah.
Can I take the weekend off and just take the shuttle, take some beers and go and see the music instead?
It's half your company, buddy. You can't.
Okay.
No, sir.
Oh, dear. Oh, well.
I'll hang out with Bob and Dave and the rest of the gang. Oh, let's see. We got lots of Formula One stories we can talk about, Jonathan. One I had on my list. I'll talk about one and then you choose one. But mine was in that same interview that Greg Maffei did, the CEO of Liberty Media. He was talking about the F1 digital experience.
Yeah.
And encompassed in that is everything from their new website, which is, if you compare it to any motorsport, including MotoGP, which has a great website,
It does.
Formula One is head
They are
and
killing it.
shoulders
And
above
so
it.
too are they on the live graphics and the video pass with the onboards and so on. It's just,
Everything
the radio.
Everything
Fantastic.
they're doing, right? And and just the digital side of it, right? Like F1 TV, you remember it had teething pains,
Yep.
because they literally was just the video delivery side of it that was kind of glitchy. They figured that out, but if you go there now, F1 TV, you can go back at least 5 years. I saw,
yeah.
I think through 2018, and look at every single race. And what I've been doing is going back and watching last year's race instead of just looking at the stats about it, but go back and watch last year's race before we come to it, and just have it on in the background if I'm not watching it up close. But they have all the onboards that you can do now on F1 TV.
I love that. I sit and listen to Alonso all day long.
I know. Have you listened to anybody besides? No, you did
I
Ricardo
know. I
last
did
week.
Ricardo. I've done Lando. Lando doesn't say much.
Yeah.
But Alonso's hilarious.
Mm.
He's looking at the big screens, going, so why is Ocon in 8th? He was in 6 a minute ago.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
what? Have you got time?
If you have not watched the onboards, go to Alonso and then you'll get hooked. Because
By the way, I've woken up the beast. Paul Bryan's just come in. Greeny, don't give up the day job.
No, I'm telling you, it wasn't that bad, but we will probably get a professional voice over.
Hey, and Dave Lawrence says Costco has 3-day GA
saw
passes
that.
in Austin in the store for $349 plus CACs.
I saw that on
For
Twitter.
the killers and queens.
They had, like you're going down the aisle at Costco, and they have, they have like a cardboard. You pick it up and you take it to the register, and they had a whole row of them, $350 plus tax. But yeah,
That's for a 3-day pass for that kind of music. And by the way, those two headliners, there's a whole bunch more music. A bit like Nashville this weekend. There's a whole other bunch of music for the weekend and things to do, karting. There's stuff for the kids. There's chance to look at new cars and there's so much going on. It's a great weekend out.
all right. So let's look at the other F1. Basically what I was just saying is the F1 digital side is just phenomenal. And I guess if you threw Drive to Survive in that category, then it is more than a home run, because it's transformed the sport and almost transformed all of sport, because everybody's looking for their magical Drive to Survive. But yeah, Jonathan, you had some. Formula One
Do you want to hear my dot to dot now?
I do.
Paul Bryan, stand by. So,
As long as
As
you
we-
don't sing it.
I'm not going to sing. No more singing, I promise. As you bloody well know, I'll do my mic okay now. Alpine have gone down the bloody toilet in the last few weeks. They fired everybody, including Permain, who was there for 32 bloody years.
And they've hired Michael Caine to.
And they've hired Michael Caine and Ryan Reynolds. He's brought a bit of the action. It's all going wrong. No, but the truth is, Alpine was, in all seriousness, they've got two great drivers in Gasly and Ocon. They are the guts of what was the Renault team. And
they
before
still
that,
really
and they
are
still
the
are,
Renault. Yeah.
But they got rid of Otmar, Safnar, right or wrong, don't know. But mid-season to get rid of the team principal and the guy who basically is the force behind the design of the car and has had a hand in Alonso's and many others' success over the years.
That was a bloodletting, man.
It was a bloodletting. Plus, Rossi's gone, the guy that was the CEO.
Yep.
That happened at
Lauren
Miami,
Rossi,
Lauren Rossi, and that happened at Miami. So they're literally limping along right now. But here's my dot to dot. When that happens, and there's somebody like Andretti who has a Renault engine contract as well as Cadillac and GM in his pocket, because they don't have a Formula One engine. So when Andretti announced right at the beginning of his quest that he'd already done an engine deal with Renault, isn't this the time to send in the cavalry, Mr. Andretti? Come in and sort this problem out. So my dot to dot is, no, I agree with Michael that very few of the teams want an 11th franchise. And I don't think that's right, because there's room for 12. There is in the Concord Agreement that ability. But okay, if Michael can't come through the door that way, well, let's save Alpine.
And bring somebody who knows how to run a team.
Well,
Clearly.
they're rudderless. They don't have a boss at the moment.
Yeah.
And that was the most amazing thing about the Belgian Grand Prix, for them to admit that they hadn't put anybody. We're going to fire Otmar. Well, who's replacing him?
Yeah.
And as Udon, our man in Thailand, said, is it Bonotto? We don't know. But they've got nobody right now.
Well, I saw your notes, and I knew this is where you were going. But I thought about this when I was saying this earlier about Andretti, about what better time to have just won Formula E championship and winning and IndyCar races and winning all over the planet with all these different series. And Andretti is, and they're building this giant facility. So
they're building sports cars. They're building road cars that could be sold in America. This is the time
Alpine
for
yes.
The
in
time
fact,
is right.
You were telling me about this earlier in the week, and I sent you that photo that Alpine brought a road car to Miami because I'm a road car geek. So I was walking through the paddock. Actually, I was walking out to the broadcast booth, and I saw this car. I was like, what is that?
And it was an
I
Alpine.
snapped the photo. I walked up, it was an Alpine.
Yep.
So that was actually last year.
Well, they're also building a wet car as well. So anyway, I just think that if I was Michael Andretti, I'd be like, guys, you're in trouble, and you need Andretti Global in 2025 to come, and we need to start working on building you a business that is going to be successful. Because when all the stars align, that could be a massively potent factor. Think about it. Renault hasn't got a customer. They're the only engine manufacturer,
doesn't have a
powertrain builder that only has themselves,
and it puts them at a major disadvantage
completely
because they don't have that. I mean, how much data does Ferrari get from everybody?
Remember, I mentioned Zach Brown. What's his engine going to be in 26?
Good question.
Well,
I know.
So the point is, putting a massive team around Alpine that would be led by Andretti Global, potentially with a customer in McLaren and Zach Brown.
Yeah.
Renault, when I was working for ESPN, Renault had Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill, and before that they had, it was massive. Renault were with Williams, and they were winning title after title after title. So when they're good, they're very, very good, and they're not far off it as an engine.
Huge company.
They're reliable. Their engines are reliable, and if you look at the straight line speed of Alpine and Gasly and so on, it's up there with the Mercedes.
The problem with Andretti, it would be maybe the same problem they already had with AlphaTauri, right? When they were saying the control issue. Now, I guarantee you, Andretti's probably that soil may have loosened a little bit.
Right now, nobody's at the wheel of the darn ship.
Well, but I'm saying on the Andretti side, because they're not going to come in, they're going to want.
Oh, no, he's going to want to buy it outright. Controlling interest. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
well, that AlphaTauri deal was ridiculous.
Hey, we just got a little bit of time, and I want to devote just a tiny bit to this story, and it popped up again. Do you remember early in the year when Haas F1 was accused of selling equipment to the Russian military to make arms, to make military?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
And I just threw together a quick YouTube video and touched all the points. It got a little traction. It was kind of popular.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all based on a report by PBS. Well, they came out with an update to that report yesterday, I believe it was, and they're saying that it's still happening, but it's all happening indirectly. They say that some company popped up out of nowhere in China, of course, that is now taking Haas equipment and funneling it to the Russians through this little Chinese company that nobody's ever heard of. And they're mostly saying it's all the parts. And in fact, there was this video from a Russian company that builds optics and stuff for scopes and stuff for military. And they showed a video of their facilities and look how good we could do. And there was a Haas CNC machine with the Russian company logo plastered over the logo, the Haas F1 logo, except they forgot one little spot up in the corner. And PBS spotted that. But it just popped up, and I don't know anything about all of this, but I just, I really think that if I'm Haas, I want to nip this. I do not want any part of this happening, and they need to. I mean, it's hard for anybody to control where we're down to a minute left, but hard to control where your parts go because they're mainly spare parts.
That's me on the dance floor.
And in the bedroom. No.
Ouch. But here's my end comment on that. Look, they're making metal objects and CNC machines. You gotta, you can't. He's not taking a political side on this.
I know, but
and it's indirect.
Yeah.
I mean, Hassa Automotive, a sold around the world. They make
they're getting these parts from who knows where. but-
right.
Yeah.
You can't link it to their decision to back Russia. It's
Yeah.
just not.
All right, we're out of time. I'm going to update you guys. We were talking about Zach Brown. Chris Medlin has got an interview coming up with Zach Brown, so that's going to be on our Wheel to Wheel show that's on Wednesday.
I was standing next to Zach Brown just yesterday.
Cool. And and we'll be back next Sunday night. Thanks everybody.
Happy trails.
Appreciate you tuning in.